TJ Goff, and this is Raymond Keech, and it is December 28th, 2007, and I'm going to be interviewing Raymond Keech. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Kingsbury in 1924, March the 1st, 1924. That would make me 83 as of today, but if I wait another couple months, it'll be 84. My parents was Florence and James Keech, and we lived Fort Edward. And after that, I was drafted into the Army in 42, but I had a broken foot, so I was deferred for at least for a year. So I went in March 17th, with St. Patrick's Day, into the service. I went down to Fort Dix. From Fort Dix, we went over to Kilmer, Camp Kilmer. There we was outfitted, and 450 of us was selected to go to Fort Devens, Mass. And at Fort Devens, Mass, we took our basic and as a 204th Engineer Combat Battalion. After that, we was shipped. This sounds funny, probably, but it's the time there was a shortage of help, and we'd met all of our qualifications. So they put us down to Zimmerman's farm down in Newburgh to pick apples. So we were known as the apple knockers. And so anyway, after that we went to Elkins, West Virginia, and there we was on maneuvers, and it was cold, and I mean it was cold, but wet, sloppy. And we come to the conclusion at that time they weren't going to send us down to the Pacific, because they was training us for cold weather. And so after we came back from there, we went back down to Fort Dix, and at that time we got all of our overseas equipment, and we went down to New York and was loaded onto the Ile de France. That was a French ship that had been sunk over there and been raised, and it was outfitted for a troop ship. But before we got out of the harbor, it broke down, so they brought us back to the port, and we unloaded, went up to Camp Shanks, and stayed there through Christmas. And then we went down on the icebreaker down to New York again. And that time they loaded us on to the Queen Mary. Well, she didn't break down. She went clear across there. The waves were pretty high coming over the bow of the boat, so on, or ship I should say, not a boat. And at that time it took us to Greenock, Scotland. And at Greenock, Scotland, we went down into England on their little railroads. It's like a stagecoach with compartments and an aisle down the side that you could walk the length of the ship or the train. Then we was stationed around Newburgh, Oxford, and I had the opportunity to go into London at one time. I was fortunate it was not an air raid at the time. So then we were stationed in England until it was getting time to go over for the invasion of June the 6th into Omaha Beach in Normandy. And so we was preparing our vehicles. We had like, it was like a kid's play toy. Or, you know what I'm talking about, putty there that they play with. And so we waterized all of our vehicles. And that would include the spark plugs, the distributor, and anything that might cause it to fail when it went into the water. Then they shipped us off over into Omaha, and this is a part that I hate to see, but when I went off the boat, or landing barge, I should say, when I went off from it, I had a Jeep that I was driving off, and when I went into the water came up, and I thought, sure as hell, I should say devil-like boat. I was going to drown, but I didn't. And but as I looked at the other bodies and so on laying in the water there, we finally got onto shore, and fortunate I was high enough to get back where we weren't hit, and the Germans had on the top firing down on us. So they had an advantage because they had the coast was all clear for them. And we landed by a pillbox. That finally after we got up onto where we'd get a foothold, but then they were pushing pretty hard, so we was pushing them back, and then we took in all of the waterizing, I keep saying winterized, but waterizing that we put on, we took off, and then we made a drive for Paris, and it took a while for us to get up there, but then we got, I ended up at St. Lo. I was the first, was a 204th and was attached to the 1st Division in the 1st Army at Omaha, and when we got up to St. Lo, General Patton came over, George Patton, better known in the Army as blood and guts. It was our blood, his guts that made the job easy. And so then we pushed across from St. Lo. I came back down south again, and then we made our drive across to France. And I was, the Soar River, we was taking quite heavy casualties, and so there was no way we could cross the river. And of course, you know the engineers, their job is to, many times, they're ahead of the infantry. And so we made our drive across, or tried to drive across, get across, so we get the infantry over onto the other shore, because that was one of our jobs. And like I said, we was taking heavy fire, so we turned and ended up with one guy got across, fortunately, and we took a rope and put across the river. And then we called onto the field artillery and asked them to send us in some smoke shells, and so we could get across and put out the smoke pots. So they sent in some shells and got a little smoke going. So hand over hand, the engineers got across, got up their smoke pots. So then that left us open to get the infantry across. After we got across the Moselle, the Soar River, and then we kept pushing on, and finally we come to this Battle of the Bulge that we're about to speak about. And that an area that lay between Belgium and Luxembourg. So the reason for this is they call the Battle of the Bulge is because of the simple reason that the Germans found that we had a weak spot there because we had troops covering all this 150 miles, and it was kind of thin. They figured that was a weak point, so they turned around and made a drive for that. Johansen Piper with his tanks, and he was better known too through the Russian front as the fire brigade, because what he used to do with people there, if they thought one of the boys or some of the soldiers tried to take and get shelter in the house, they'd set the place on fire, so when the guys came out, they'd shoot them. Well, anyway, this bulge developed here. They called it the bulge because they broke in our area and made the bulge. So then there was, after that, We got, that was that was December the 16th in 1944. So you can see what progress we made across Europe in the length of time. So at the Battle of the Bulge, it was a breaking point for us. Either they were going to make or break our forces. But Hudson Piper made one mistake. He was driving for Antwerp because he knew at Antwerp that was where our supplies was coming in. And if he could have got there, he could have cut us off. We probably might have lost the war. Not only that, they were hard up for fuel and one thing at another. And if they'd have stayed a little to the south of that, they would have hit our supply, fuel supply, and they would have had it made. But anyway, he made the mistake by going north. And shortly after that, we got back to our lines, back to where the line was formed again. And at that time, that was in January of 1945, January the 25th to be exact. So we got back with the lines, and then after that, we could see where that the Germans was weakening them because they were more or less giving up from time to time. And you'd see sometimes through the wooded areas, you'd see a white flag go up or someone would want to surrender. So then we went on over to the Moselle River, and then from there we ended up, we lost some men at the Moselle. Then we went to over to the Battle of the Rhine. At the Battle of the Rhine, there was a big sign before we got there, and written in English. It says, "See the Rhine and leave your skull there." Well, anyway, we kind of feared that it was going to be a hard time there, but as it was, we we went across the river, and at that time we had to put the infantry across. And my boat was hit before I left shore. Had I been in the boat, I would have been hit too, because it come in right where, see, what we had to do was put the infantry went across. And at that time, you couldn't talk little whisper. If you wanted to know anything, or this guy wanted to know anything, you would have to pass the information around, so this would have to pass it on back. So I asked if anybody was hit because I heard the small arms fire because it was spattering all over the water that night. And that was in March 23rd, 22nd in fact, 11 o'clock at night. The reason I remember it so well is the fact my father's birthday was March 24th. So we finally got across the other side, but that time my boat was taking so much water that I couldn't make it back across. So I went over and joined in with another boat crew and another guy, because there was only one engineer to a boat. So we came back over, and at that time I heard someone groaning in the boat. And so I went down and thought I could help him, but I guess he was pretty bad. So I went up to the building where we were staying, I'd say hiding, and they asked for some volunteers. At that time, the Germans was really pouring old ammunition to us. So we ended up, we got through that night all right, and then we pushed on. All the time the Germans was kind of giving up, and then we ended up at the Moselle where we lost some men there. We tried to put a walking bridge across, but we was unable to do it. The water was too swift. So ended up by, we just went about as far as we could go on that. But as you well know, the engineers, their job is to build bridges, get the equipment across in any way possible, and sometimes we even had to forge the river, fill it in so to get the tanks across. At Arteville, we had to do that due to the fact that that was outside of Metz. And at that time, I'm back in the era on that. I should have mentioned this when I was in France. But we was at Metz on at Arteville. And these, the Germans had, they would come up and they would fire three rounds. And when they fired the 3 rounds, they would go down. It was on an elevator, and they would fire the 3 rounds and go down. We tried our best. We was going to burn them out, but we couldn't burn them out. We tried flamethrowers. We tried everything possible. But come to find out later, after the war was over, we went to that fort, and it was like a city down in there. But they would blow our bridges as fast as we could put them across. One night we went on a night patrol. We didn't carry anything, only mines. And at that time, what we had to do was put in a minefield, about 8 pounds on a mine. And so they would, the Germans, come to find out, we went over, we didn't even have a knife, we couldn't carry nothing, only a mine. So we went and laid the minefield. Come to find out, the Germans had this eyeball, and they went back and booby-trapped the mines. So when 150 come in through to pick them up, pick up the mines, some of them were lost there because as soon as they thought that it was, because you had to make a pattern, and that had to go back to headquarters. And we had it, there was no booby traps on them, but anyway, that was one of the things that was involved. One things that we worried a lot, an awful lot about was their mines. They had a mine that was wires. It was string wires. And at that time, what was to do, there was a plunger in there, like a pencil. And it was spring loaded. And as you go through the grass, catch it with your foot, it would trip it. At that time, it would right up to the people. And also, another mine that we worried a lot more about was the shoebox mine. That was a small mine. It was it wouldn't kill a person, but it would blow a leg off or a foot off or something, so that they was unable to progress along the way and take maybe a few people to take care of them. So other than that, another thing I will tell anybody that's going into the service, you probably shouldn't, I'm way ahead of myself here, I got through the war part of it now, so you're going to talk about the other part, but when you get down to it, you're going to have to translate it yourself. But when you, if anyone going into the service, there's a lot of things in the service that they teach you or try to put over. It sounds kind of foolish to you, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of those things that help you. And I'm very thankful that I paid attention to what was going on. That's why I'm here to talk with you today. So 60 years later, I didn't think at times that I would ever make it out of there, but I did. Back home, I guess everything's all right. I ain't gonna say I didn't shed blood over there, because I did. But this is about it. So anything else that you might want to know that I forgot to mention?
Where were you on December 7th, 1941?
Well, I'm going to tell you, 1941, I was working on a farm over in Argot. And that's a project for the ETO. I was in the ETO. You're going to question probably what I'm talking about, but the ETO, The ETO is a European Theater of Operations. So it's a short way of putting it, we'd say ETO. Anybody asks you where you was, he was in the ETO. And if they was to ask you if you were, should mention the fact you was PTO, you was in the Pacific. And that's the way they didn't go through the thing. After was out working on the farm, still going to school. That was back in 1940. So after that, I had an automobile accident, 42, with my brother. He hit a tree and I ended up broken foot. So I was deferred from the service for a year. I was still going to school. In 43, I went into the service. Anything else that I could?
You said you were drafted, right?
Yes, I was drafted due to the fact that I was laid up with a broken foot anyway, so I couldn't go on. And so I was drafted. On St. Patrick's Day, I went down to do Albany and went into the service.
Did any of your friends get drafted with you, or?
Yes, there was a bunch of us from here, from Hudson Falls, New York, and there was some from, went down with me at the same time, some of the guys I used to go to school with. And I don't know, I never heard of some of them afterward, so I don't know whether they made the grade or whether they didn't. But, yes, I've been through it all, and like I said, believe me, anybody going in the service, even though there's a thing says there's some of their training that seems awful foolish, pay attention to what you're talking about, because it's going to be helpful. It's one of these things that you kill them or they're going to kill you. It's a hard thing to say. I've seen a lot of it, and I wouldn't run away from it, but if I was called, I don't think I'd ever be at this stage. But if I was, I'd get back and serve my country again. I've got awards that I received for being over there, and came back. Like I said, I was discharged October the 30th. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I was discharged October of the 31st, Halloween night, 1945. And it took us quite a while to come back across, but it didn't take us long to go working up the Queen Mary, a big ship. I can show you some of the medals if you wish to see, and so on and so forth. But other than that, I don't think I think I've covered slightly. We hit things where there's some that's still that I wouldn't want to mention. You're not going to find this warehouse. I went in the service.
So this was you in 1943?
I was 1943 on March 17th when I went into the service.
Okay, we're back with Mr. Keech. He just showed us some of his awards and stuff that he got from the war. I just had a few more questions for you. Yeah, you said that in the war you met Patton, or you...
Yes, I did.
Now, what were your feelings towards him? Did you care for him or not?
Well, it ain't that I cared for him, but I'll tell you one thing. He was one of the smartest generals, and he was rough. Yes, I met him on one time I was on a patrol. See, that one of my jobs is reconnoitering roads ahead of the tanks and so on. and we had to go through and check the towns and find out if there was any minefields, so for the mines, if we could find any, to take care of that. One time we come into this one town, and when we did go into the town, it was like a factory down here, and the road was on the side hill. And when we went into the town, there was a road coming this way, and we was going this way. And we didn't know it at the time, but they let us through. And only to find out later, when we started up the other side, there was a cut down, and we started to go through, and when we started to go through this, they opened fire on us. And at that time, we found out we was behind enemy mines. And at that time, I think my Lieutenant Spinner, I think he figured we had. So I was able to give him orders instead of him giving me orders for a change. So I told him, you go on that side, and I'm going on this side, because I was carrying a submarine gun. And Jackson was on the machine gun down that was mounted to a jeep. So I said, you cover that. If you see anything move, I said, let me have it. Well, anyway, after the tanks, we could see the tanks coming. As we saw the tanks coming our way, we looked at them and kept looking. We said, oh, that must be Germans. But it wasn't. It was American tanks coming. So they moved into town and they started blasting. So we were saved anyway for there, but when it all slowed down, it seems like, we went down, back down into town, and up in the church steeple, we heard a crack, Bible crack. Come to find it was a young, we got him down out of there, and I don't think that kid today, because I took a Thompson sub and had clips on them like that. And I just went berserk, I guess, and I just sprayed that whole steeple all the way down through it. But anyway, when we got through, they brought this kid down out of the steeple, and I'll swear that that kid wasn't over 16 years old. And when they we got him on the stretcher and everything, and I had to take him up by the head so we could carry him. And he looked up and looked at me, he says, you son of a gun, you're the one that done this to me. And that, there's a lot of times at night, I have very brief times when things come back to me, And that in particular does, because the kid just looked me right in the eye enough to say, son of a gun, you've done this to me. So, anyway, we got all of that, and that mess again. Back into the circulation. So, but I got the Bronze Star medal on the Rhine Cross. He was going to give us one for this ordeal, but we didn't think it was worth that much to get him out of it safe. So, what else we got in these notes?
You said that you had to go into minefields and search for mines. Was that scary for you, or?
Well, no, what happened, we had to lay the minefields, but sometimes the other outfit, the other engineers that might come through, they had to look for the mines. And you had to be careful, because what they done, it was your big mine was about 8 pounds, and they would take and put a detonator down and under the thing. So when you took the weight off that, it would set it off and blow the mine up. And so you had to be awful careful when you were looking for a feathery job, you might say. Be very careful. The nurse.
Yeah, the nurse.
Oh, the nurse coming.
Okay, so you were talking about D-Day earlier. What were your feelings when you found out that the end of the war was coming?
It's quite swollen now because I can't get her.
Well, I'll tell you, we're very happy.
Get her to
It was a rainy day, I can remember that real well. And everybody just about was there. Everybody around. It was firing rifles and boy, I'll tell you, they were dumping the old ammunition like it was going out of style. And, but we never got the word until a day later, before it was over. And we were very happy about it. Another thing,
I was hoping.
like I say, I don't feel all of this straight to you. But anyway, after the war was over, we started guarding prisoners of war. And each one of us had a detail that we had to watch, you know, maybe 5 men. So it turned out one morning we got a call for a lineup. And they said there was an SS man amongst our group. And unfortunately, that SS man was in my group. And he was the nicest guy. I suppose he was happy it was over. But he was the nicest guy. Young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed fellow, very nice guy. And, but anyway, they had to take him away because he was with the SS. They went into a different group. So, that was at Swandorf, Germany. So while I was in Swandorf, Germany, anyone who had got an award, Purple Heart or Bronze Star or whatever medal, could go to the French Riviera. And I was most fortunate. And so I went down to the French Riviera and spent 7 days down there. But on the way down, the train passed through Stuttgart. And there's a fellow on there, he was from Schenectady with me. He was in my outfit. Henry Ellerhoff was his name. And anyway, while we was going through town, I said, hey, I got a brother stationed here in Stuttgart. And he said, well, I got in-laws here in Stuttgart. I said, yeah. And he said, yes. So I said, let's see if we can find the officer in charge and see if we can put off here instead of going to the French Riviera. He said, no. And he says, we never caught up with the officer in charge, so we went to the French Riviera. When I came back, this is all after the war. But after we came back, I said, let's go down and see the old man. And he said, he won't let us go. I said, let's go down and see. So we went down and approached Captain McIntosh, and we asked him, told him what the situation was. And he says, that's the 7th Army. And I said, yes. And he says, if they spot the 3rd Army down there, they're going to wonder what you're doing, because on the front of the jeep, each one had the Army, 3rd Army had 3A or 7A or whatever. So he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a requisition sheet, and they get stopped for anything. Just tell them that you're down in that area to pick up so-and-so. So we went down, and I seen my brother. I hadn't seen him in about 3 years. And so I went down to see him, and then in the meantime, I had the pleasure of going over and meeting Warhouse family. Well, come to find out, she was from the southern part of Germany, and he was from the northern part of Germany. But they came to the States, and they got married here in the States. So, but we went to the front, down to, after that we moved from Swandorf to Nuremberg. And at Nuremberg, that was a case where regarding war prisoners, where they were rebuilding the Grand Hotel, which was where the war crimes were. And there was an English-speaking German prisoner. And so anytime I had anything to do, I'd give him the information, he'd pass it on to the Germans. Well, one day he says to me, he says, "Did you ever meet Goring?" And I said, "No, I never did." But he says, "He's right down here," he says, "in the cell." I says, "He is?" He said, "Yes." So the bombed out part of the building, so we made a point to be down there. And they would give him 15 minutes to come out and walk around the yard for exercise. So I saw that Goring at Nuremberg. And finally, a little while later, this girl came out. Beautiful, stacked lady, young girl. High boots on. I think it was patent leather boots. It looked like from where I stood. And she pranced around the yard for a while, and then she went in. So there was only allowed 15 minutes out. So after we left Nuremberg, that's when we went down to Marseille, France, and got on the boat. I guess it seemed like it took forever to come back across, but it didn't take long to boat. That brought me back into Fort Pix. I don't know any other these dirty stories I got. You're going to have to pick all of this apart, because if you get it on that tape, I'll tell you. I floated around from one place to another, because I'm not a person for speeches.
Now, you were in Germany, right?
Right.
Now, did you see any of the concentration camps when you were there or not?
I didn't get to see any of the concentration camps because being an engineer, we had to be out in the field. Mm-hmm. We saw very little shelter where a lot of people would have the pleasure of going into a building and spending the night. We didn't have that pleasure because we had to be out on the cold all the time, you know, I say. In fact, at the Battle of the Bulge, it seems like it was so cold. They said it was one of the coldest winters they ever had over there. And it seems like when you were walking, your feet were so cold and everything, and that you felt even like your shoes was even cracking. Boy, it was cold. But we was out all the time out. And, although one time, just as we pushed back from Luxembourg, we did have the pleasure of one night going a couple nights and staying with a family there in Luxembourg, because that's a peaceful country in between Germany and France. And that lady was awful good to us. She turned around and we killed a pig for her, which she said we couldn't do. Well, they wouldn't allow it. Said officer wouldn't allow it. The officer had nothing to do with it. We shot a pig for her anyway. And then she used to take in our mummy sacks, and of course them you got into and all open was just her face. And he would, she would take and put our stones, heat them, and put them in our mummy sacks under her feet to keep us warm, because she knew that being out in the field there all the time, your feet were cold and so on. They were very good to us. In fact, these old boys, and one of them saved my life one time. I was about ready to kill him. You see over there, the houses are together, and the barn's over here, and all the rest of the hall is through there. And we just left there going out, and I didn't hear it. It was a screaming Mimi coming in. That's one of them, you know. So he heard it and I didn't. And he grabbed me by the neck and pulled me right back on my back. I got up the attention to blasting him, but about that time it hit the truck right offside, blew that up. So I guess I was. Well, I've had a few close calls, but fortunately, like I say, a lot of it is in your training. I hope you never have to go into the service, unless you want to. But if they do, always pay attention to some of the foolish things that they might pull on you, because it might save your life in time to come.
Now, I have one more question for you. Do you remember when FDR died?
Yes, I do. I remember them, and I remember at that time, a lot of them said, well, now the war will be over. And it wasn't shortly after that the Trumans took over that it did. So, you know, we always said when we was in the service that the old people made the war and the young people fought it, which is true. Because I spent my 20th birthday, I was stationed in England. I spent my 21st birthday in combat. So, and now I made it up, fortunately, to 83. Another 2 months, 84.
Now, what division did you fight in?
I was with, we was attached when we hit the Omaha Beach Army with the 1st Division and the 1st Army. And being a battalion, which we were, they could switch you anywhere they wanted you, wherever they were needed, they could put us. And so they switched us into the 3rd Army because the 7th Engineers come in to relieve us, so we were supposed to go back for a rest, and it turned out that they couldn't handle it, so they put us back up onto the line again, and we stayed with the 3rd Army, 5th Division, George Patton's Army. But he was rough, but there isn't a general that I knew of that I'd rather serve under than him, because he was tough. And if it hadn't been for him, we'd have lost the war over there in the Battle of the Bulge. Because he wanted to go on before, because, well, you know, you heard the old story that nothing can stop the Army Air Corps. Well, you've got to start and put another phrase in there, only the weather. Because they did not, the Air Corps could not get off the ground to come and give us any support if they had to come up. Then that's when the weather broke, they came in and they helped us push them back at the Bulge. That takes her up to that point. Now we're got another. Don't make them too tough. But it was tough. I'm glad it's over in a way, but then again, by the same token, I'd do it again if I had to. If God give me the power to do it, I'd do it. I'd do that. Like I said here, now in the Iraq here over there, they may not take me, but I keep telling them I can they can make a target out of me. So, but I'd go back if there's something I could do. I don't regret my time.
Is there any final things you'd like to say before we... Is there any final words you'd like to say?
I don't know of anything. I think I've covered. I've got so mixed up now from going from the invasion to Normandy to the Battle of the Bulge and back to everywhere. I think I've got you so hauled up now. You're going to have an awful time making up a story over. No, I only say to any boy that's going into the service, I can't say for the wax or anything, but I say for any fellow that's going into the service, which I hope that none of them have to, that they pay attention to the training, because that's maybe a life-saving device for them. That's about all I guess I could know. Because when you're out on the battlefield, it's a different story than sitting here watching the movies. You're watching the movies, one time they're shot, this and that, so on and so forth. 5 months later, they're up and running around. That's not the way the war operates. And if you look at that one on the Battle of the Bulge, from what I saw, and I don't watch war movies very much, I did try watching some of it, and I could see that Battle of the Bulge that they played was not the original. What it is, it's actors that's making it up from stories that they've heard. So,
Now, does it make you angry or anything when you watch Hollywood's portrayal of the battles and stuff?
I'm not much of a television fan. I do watch occasionally. I try to watch the news, see what's happening in the world around me, but other than that, television doesn't interest me. I can find better things to do by tinkering on something like working on a motor or something like that, and repairing things. You might say puttering. Think about what it is. But I spend a lot of time, usually when it's summertime, outdoors and around. And my grandson, he works for a motorcycle place up there. What's the name of it? Can't think of it. But anyway, he's always got something he wants to take for it, fix up for him. So.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Keech, for doing the interview.
That is not Mr. I do not like the phrase Mr. due to the fact that my father was Mr. and I respect him, but I am Ray Keech. And a pleasure meeting you. And I hope I haven't got you so fouled up that you don't know which corner you're supposed to.
Is there anything else you'd like to say Is there anything else you'd like to say before we?
I don't know of anything. I thought I'd have got you so fouled up now that you don't know where you are.
Okay.
By switching everything around. It's been a pleasure meeting both of you, and the photographer's doing a wonderful job, I'm sure. And I wish you the best of luck, and you don't have to ever have to go and force yourself into the service, or they force you into the service. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.